The lonely human encountered a beautiful, passionate alien girl. Park Junho stood at the observation window and watched the endless darkness of space stretch before him like a silent ocean that would never end. 14 months he had lived alone on this barren moon called Verath 7. And 14 months he had welcomed the silence that wrapped around him like a cold blanket he did not want to remove. The mining outpost was small but functional, with automated machines doing most of the work while Junho simply maintained them and sent reports back to the company every week. He preferred it this way. Far from Earth, far from the memories that haunted him every time he closed his eyes. His wife Minji had died 2 years ago in a transport accident, and the grief had consumed him so completely that he could not bear to stay on Earth where everything reminded him of her smile, her laugh, her warmth. So he ran to the edge of civilized space, to a place where no one would ask him questions and no one would offer sympathy he did not want. The ring on his finger caught the dim light of distant stars, and he touched it gently as he did every morning. A ritual that brought him both pain and comfort at the same time. His daily routine was simple and predictable, which was exactly what he needed. Wake up, check the mining equipment, eat a tasteless meal from the supply packages, run diagnostics on the communication systems, and then sit in silence until sleep finally claimed him. But on this particular morning, something different happened. The proximity alarm screamed through the quiet station, making Junho jump from his chair with his heart racing fast. He rushed to the sensor console and saw something impossible on the screen. A ship was falling from the sky, trailing smoke and fire as it plunged toward the surface of the moon. He watched with wide eyes as the vessel crashed into the rocky terrain about 3 kilometers from his outpost, sending up a cloud of dust and debris that slowly settled in the low gravity. For a long moment, Junho simply stared at the screen, his mind racing with questions. Should he investigate, or should he stay safe inside his station and report the crash to his company? The ship design was unfamiliar to him, clearly not human, and that made him nervous. But then he thought about what kind of man he wanted to be, and he knew he could not simply ignore the possibility that someone might be hurt and dying out there. He grabbed his environmental suit and helmet, checked his oxygen supply twice, and headed for the airlock with determination in his steps. The journey across the barren landscape was slow and difficult, but Junho pushed forward until he reached the crash site. The ship was badly damaged, with smoke still rising from its broken hull and pieces of metal scattered across the ground. He climbed through a tear in the side of the vessel and searched through the wreckage with his flashlight cutting through the darkness. That was when he found her. She lay unconscious among the debris, and Junho felt his breath catch in his throat when he saw her. She was not human. That much was clear from the soft blue glow that pulsed beneath her skin like gentle waves of light. Her features were sharp and elegant, with high cheekbones and pointed ears that gave her an almost ethereal appearance. Purple blood seeped from a wound on her head, and her breathing was shallow and weak. Junho recognized her species from the database files he had studied during his training. She was Volanthi, a member of a warrior race known throughout the galaxy for their strength, their pride, and their open contempt for species they considered inferior. Humans were very much on that list of inferior species. The Volanthi believed that humans were primitive creatures who had no place among the advanced civilizations of the galaxy. Every instinct told Junho to walk away, to let this alien who would likely despise him simply fade into death. But he looked at her face, peaceful in unconsciousness, and he saw not an enemy, but simply a person who needed help. He could not leave her to die, no matter what her people thought of his kind. With great care, he lifted her into his arms, surprised by how light she felt despite her tall frame. The journey back to the outpost was exhausting, and his muscles burned with effort by the time he reached the airlock. He carried her inside and laid her gently on his own bed, the only proper sleeping surface in the small station. For the next several hours, Junho worked to save her life. He cleaned her wounds and applied the medical supplies from his emergency kit, grateful that basic biology seemed similar enough for the treatments to work. He monitored her vital signs through a universal scanner and adjusted the room temperature when he noticed her body responding poorly to the cold. As night fell over the barren moon, Junho sat in a chair beside the bed and watched the alien woman sleep. The soft glow beneath her skin pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, and he found it strangely beautiful. He wondered what her name was, where she had come from, and why she had crashed on this forgotten moon at the edge of nowhere. He wondered if she would thank him when she woke, or if she would attack him for daring to touch her with his inferior human hands. Either way, he knew he had made the right choice. Leaving someone to die alone was not something Park Junho could ever do, no matter what species they belonged to. He had lost too much already to become the kind of man who could ignore suffering. So he sat in the darkness, keeping watch over his unexpected guest, and waited for morning to bring whatever consequences his compassion would deliver. The lonely human encountered a beautiful, passionate alien girl. The alien woman woke with violence in her eyes and fury in her movements. Junho barely managed to dodge the fist that swung toward his face as she leaped from the bed with a scream of rage. She grabbed him by the throat and slammed him against the wall, her fingers strong enough to crush his windpipe if she chose. Her bioluminescent skin flashed bright red with aggression, and her eyes burned with fear and confusion. "Where am I?" she demanded in broken galactic common, her accent thick and her words sharp like blades. "You are safe," Junho managed to choke out despite the pressure on his throat. "I saved you from the crash." She studied his face with suspicion, her eyes narrowing as she recognized what he was. Human. She spat the word like it was poison on her tongue. "You dared to touch a Volanthi warrior." "I dared to save your life," Junho replied without anger in his voice. "You were dying, and I could not leave you to die alone." Something flickered in her expression, perhaps surprise or perhaps doubt, but she released his throat and stepped back. She swayed on her feet, still weak from her injuries, and Junho moved forward instinctively to catch her before she fell. She pushed him away with a growl of frustration. "I do not need help from a primitive creature," she said, but her voice lacked the strength to make the insult sting. "Then sit down before you collapse and hurt yourself again," Junho suggested calmly. "I did not work so hard to save you just to watch you damage yourself with stubborn pride." She stared at him for a long moment and then slowly lowered herself onto the edge of the bed. Her skin shifted from angry red to a confused shade of orange as she looked around the small station. "Why would you help me?" she asked finally. "Humans know how Volanthi view your kind, yet you brought me here and tended my wounds." "Because someone needed help, and I was able to give it," Junho answered simply. "That is reason enough." She shook her head as if his words made no sense to her. "I am Solara," she said after a pause. "Former commander of the Volanthi Third Fleet, now branded a traitor and hunted by my own people." Junho raised an eyebrow at this unexpected confession. "A traitor," he repeated. "What did you do to earn such a title?" Her jaw tightened, and pain crossed her features that had nothing to do with her physical injuries. "I refused to execute prisoners," she admitted quietly. "Enemy soldiers who had surrendered and begged for mercy, and I could not bring myself to slaughter them like animals." "That sounds like honor to me, not treachery," Junho said. Solara looked at him with something like wonder in her eyes. "Among my people, mercy is weakness," she explained. "A warrior who cannot kill without hesitation is useless, dangerous even. They stripped my rank and sent hunters to bring me back for execution." So you ran, Junho concluded. So I ran, she confirmed with shame coloring her voice. And now I have crashed on this forgotten moon and owe my life to a human who should have left me to die. Junho moved to the small kitchen area and prepared 2 cups of warm, nutrient drink. He placed one in front of Solara and sat down across from her with his own cup. My name is Park Junho, he said. I am an engineer, and I have lived alone on this outpost for 14 months. You are welcome to stay until you recover and figure out your next move. Solara wrapped her hands around the warm cup and studied him with curiosity. Why do you live alone in such a desolate place? She asked. Humans are social creatures, are they not? Junho's hand moved unconsciously to the ring on his finger, and Solara's sharp eyes followed the movement. Some wounds require solitude to heal, he answered without truly answering. She noticed the ring and tilted her head. You have a mate, she observed. I had a mate, Junho corrected her gently. She died 2 years ago. Solara fell silent, and her skin shifted to a softer shade of blue that seemed to reflect sympathy. I did not mean to cause pain with my question, she said. You did not know, Junho replied. Now drink your nutrients and rest. Your body needs time to recover. Over the next few days, Junho and Solara existed in an uneasy truce within the small station. She was still hostile and suspicious, often watching him with narrowed eyes as if expecting a trap. But she also could not deny that he continued to care for her without asking anything in return. He gave her his bed and slept in a chair. He cooked meals and offered her the larger portions. He changed her bandages with gentle hands and never once made her feel weak for needing assistance. When the weekly check-in from the mining company came through, Solara tensed with fear. Will you report me? She asked. Junho looked at her for a moment, then turned to the communication console and lied smoothly to his supervisors. Everything is normal here, he said. No unusual activity to report. When the transmission ended, Solara stared at him with an expression he could not read. You just lied for me, she said. You risk your position, perhaps your freedom, to protect someone you barely know. Junho shrugged. You are not a threat to anyone, he said simply. You are just someone trying to survive in a galaxy that has decided you do not deserve to live. I understand that feeling better than you might think. Solara's skin glowed with soft purple light, an emotional response she could not control. She did not understand this human, but she was beginning to realize that perhaps her people had been very wrong about his kind. The lonely human encountered a beautiful, passionate alien girl 2 weeks passed on the quiet moon, and something began to change between the human and the Volanthi warrior. Solara's wounds healed quickly, her species naturally recovering faster than humans, and soon she grew restless with nothing to do. She started helping Junho with repairs around the station, following him through the corridors and handing him tools as he worked on broken equipment. At first she claimed it was simply boredom that motivated her, but Junho noticed how carefully she watched him, how eagerly she listened when he explained what he was doing. Your technology is primitive compared to Volanthi engineering, she said one day as they fixed a malfunctioning air recycler. Yet there is a certain elegance to its simplicity. Humans learned long ago that complicated systems fail in complicated ways, Junho replied. Simple machines are easier to fix when you are far from home. Solara nodded thoughtfully, and her skin glowed with the soft green color that Junho had learned meant she was thinking deeply. Their conversations grew longer as the days continued. Junho told her about Earth, about its blue oceans and green forests and the billions of humans who called it home. He described human music with its countless genres and styles, human food with its endless variety of flavors and preparations, human art that ranged from ancient cave paintings to holographic sculptures. Solara listened with fascination, Her previous contempt for humanity slowly crumbling as she learned how rich and complex human culture truly was. I was taught that humans were simple creatures, driven only by fear and greed, she admitted one evening. My people said you spread across the galaxy like a disease, consuming resources and contributing nothing of value. And what do you think now? Junho asked. Solara was quiet for a long moment before answering. I think my people were wrong about many things, she said softly. One night, Junho sat at a small console and activated an old audio file he had not played in months. Music filled the station, a gentle melody with a woman singing in Korean about love and loss and the hope that tomorrow might bring healing. Solara emerged from the sleeping area and stood frozen in the doorway. What is this? She whispered, and her skin pulsed with colors Junho had never seen before. It was my wife's favorite song, he answered. Minji used to sing it when she cooked dinner or cleaned the house or worked in her garden. I have not listened to it since she died. Why do you listen now? Solara asked. Junho considered the question carefully. Because I am tired of running from her memory, he said finally. Grief is not something you can escape by hiding at the edge of the galaxy. It follows you wherever you go. Solara moved closer and sat beside him, her movements hesitant as if she was unsure whether her presence was welcome. Tell me about her, she said quietly. Tell me about Minji. So Junho talked, and the words flowed from him like water breaking through a dam. He told Solara about how he met Minji at university, how she laughed at his terrible jokes and challenged him to be better than he thought he could be. He described their wedding day, small and simple with only close friends and family, and how Minji had cried happy tears when she said her vows. He spoke about their plans to have children someday, to grow old together and watch their grandchildren play in the garden Minji loved so much. And then he told her about the accident, the transport crash that killed Minji instantly and left Junho alone in a universe that suddenly felt empty and cold. When he finished, tears ran down his face, and he did not try to hide them. Solara's skin glowed with deep purple light, and Junho saw that her own eyes were wet with tears she had not expected. I did not know humans could love so deeply, she said. Among my people, partnerships are practical arrangements for producing strong offspring. Emotion is considered a distraction from duty. Then I feel sorry for your people, Junho replied. Love is what makes life worth living. Without it, we are just machines going through the motions of existence. Solara reached out and placed her hand over his, her blue skin warm against his own. I am beginning to understand why you helped me, she said. A heart capable of such love cannot bear to see suffering, even in a stranger who does not deserve such kindness. Everyone deserves kindness, Junho said. Even proud Volanthi warriors who insult humans and crash on forgotten moons. Solara laughed, and the sound surprised them both. It was the first time she had laughed since arriving, and the joy of it transformed her face into something even more beautiful. Her skin rippled with pink and gold lights, and Junho realized he was staring at her. Your people show emotions through your skin, he observed. You cannot hide what you feel. It is considered a weakness, Solara admitted. Warriors train for years to control their bioluminescence, to appear calm and cold regardless of inner turmoil. But you do not control it around me, Junho pointed out. Solara looked at him with an expression he could not name. Perhaps I do not wish to hide from you, she said softly. The music continued to play in the background, and neither of them moved to turn it off. They sat together in comfortable silence, two lonely souls from different worlds who had somehow found each other in the vast emptiness of space. And for the first time in 2 years, Park Junho felt something other than grief stirring in his heart. The lonely human encountered a beautiful, passionate alien girl. The alarm shattered the peaceful morning like a stone through glass. Junho rushed to the sensor console with Solara close behind him, and what he saw on the screen made his blood run cold. A Volanthi warship had entered orbit around the moon, and 3 smaller craft were already descending toward the surface. "They found me," Solara whispered, and her skin flashed with the bright red of terror. "The hunters have finally found me." "How many will there be?" Junho asked, his mind already racing through possible options. 3 hunters in each craft," Solara answered. 9 warriors total, each one trained from childhood to be perfect killing machines. "Can you fight them?" Solara shook her head. "I am 1 warrior against 9, and they will have orders to take me alive if possible. They will use weapons that disable rather than kill, which means I cannot simply charge into battle." Junho grabbed her shoulders and looked into her eyes. "Then we need to be smart instead of strong," he said. "This is a mining outpost. I have tools and equipment that were never designed for combat, but desperate humans have always been good at improvising." "You would fight for me?" Solara asked with disbelief in her voice. "Against 9 Volanthi warriors. I would rather die fighting than hand you over to executioners," Junho replied. "Now help me prepare." They worked frantically as the hunter craft landed nearby. Junho showed Solara how to rig mining explosives with remote detonators, and where to place them along the approach routes to the station. He programmed the automated mining drones to patrol the perimeter with their cutting lasers set to maximum power. He even flooded one section of the outer corridors with coolant gas that would freeze Volanthi lungs if they breathed it. When the hunters finally appeared on the horizon, Junho and Solara were as ready as they could be. The lead hunter was massive, even by Volanthi standards, with scars covering his face and contempt burning in his eyes. He approached the station entrance and activated a communication channel. "Human creature," his voice boomed through the speakers. "We have no quarrel with you. Surrender the traitor Solara and you will be allowed to live." Junho activated his own communicator. "Solara is under my protection," he announced. "Leave this moon now or face the consequences." Laughter erupted from the hunters, 9 voices mocking the tiny human who dared to threaten them. "1 primitive against 9 Volanthi warriors," the lead hunter said with amusement. "This will be entertaining." They charged toward the station, and that was when the first explosion detonated beneath their feet. 2 hunters went down immediately, wounded but not dead. The others scattered in confusion, and the automated mining drones swooped in with lasers blazing. Junho watched from the control room as chaos erupted outside. The Volanthi were strong and fast, but they had expected easy prey, not a battlefield full of traps and mechanical attackers. 3 more hunters fell to the drones before the survivors destroyed the machines. But now only 4 hunters remained standing, and they were angry. The lead hunter blasted through the station's main door and stormed inside with murder in his eyes. Junho met him in the corridor with nothing but a mining pick in his hands. "Foolish human," the hunter growled. "You have only delayed the inevitable." He lunged forward, and Junho barely dodged the attack. The human was smaller and weaker, but he knew every inch of this station, every hiding spot and every shortcut. He led the hunter on a chase through the corridors, triggering traps and collapsing ceiling panels to slow his pursuer. Meanwhile, Solara faced the other 3 hunters in the main chamber. She fought with the skill of a former commander, blocking and striking with precision that made her opponents hesitate. But 3 against 1 was too many, and soon they had her cornered. That was when Junho appeared behind them. He had circled around through the maintenance tunnels, and he carried a canister of pressurized mining fuel. "Get down," he shouted to Solara. She dropped to the floor as Junho threw the canister and fired his emergency flare gun at it. The explosion knocked all 3 hunters unconscious and sent Junho flying backward into the wall. Pain exploded through his body as something cracked in his ribs, but he forced himself to stay conscious. The lead hunter emerged from the smoke, bleeding from dozens of small wounds, but still standing. "Impressive for a human," he admitted. "But this ends now." He raised his weapon to deliver the killing blow, but Solara was faster. She grabbed a fallen hunter's blade and drove it through the leader's shoulder, forcing him to his knees. "It is over," she declared. "Your hunters are defeated, and you are wounded. Leave now and tell my people that I am not so easily captured." The lead hunter looked at Junho with something like respect in his eyes. "The human fought well," he said grudgingly. "Perhaps your primitive species has more value than we believed." Solara knelt beside Junho and cradled his head in her lap. His vision was blurring, and every breath sent fire through his broken ribs. "You foolish, wonderful human," she whispered, and her skin glowed with colors that spoke of fear and gratitude and something deeper. "You almost died for me." "Worth it," Junho managed to say before darkness claimed him. When he woke hours later, Solara was sitting beside him with tears streaming down her face. "I thought I lost you," she said. "I thought you died because of me." Junho reached up and touched her glowing cheek. "I am harder to kill than I look," he said with a weak smile. And in that moment, both of them knew that something between them had changed forever. The lonely human encountered a beautiful, passionate alien girl. The days following the battle were quiet and gentle as Junho slowly recovered from his injuries. Solara rarely left his side, changing his bandages with careful hands and preparing meals that she had learned to cook from watching him. Her skin glowed constantly with soft shades of purple and pink, colors she no longer tried to hide. The defeated hunters remained on the moon, their ship disabled by the damage it sustained during the fight. They kept their distance from the outpost, waiting for rescue from their homeworld that would take weeks to arrive. One morning, the lead hunter approached the station under a flag of truce. Junho watched from the window as Solara went outside to meet him. "I have a question," the hunter said, his voice lacking the arrogance it once held. "Why did the human fight for you?" Solara considered her answer carefully. "Because he is human," she replied. "Because his people do not abandon those in need, even strangers, even enemies. They call it compassion, and they consider it their greatest strength." The hunter shook his head in confusion. "Compassion is weakness," he said, but the words sounded hollow now. "Mercy leads to death. And yet here I stand, alive and free, because one human refused to accept that philosophy," Solara countered. "Perhaps it is time for our people to reconsider what true strength really means." The hunter had no response, and he returned to his companions with troubled thoughts weighing on his mind. Inside the station, Junho was finally strong enough to walk on his own. He found Solara standing at the observation window, staring out at the stars with a distant expression on her beautiful face. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "The future," she answered. "I cannot stay here, Junho." "More hunters will come eventually, and next time there might be too many even for your clever traps." "I know," he said quietly. "I must keep moving, stay ahead of them, find somewhere in the galaxy where I can disappear," Solara continued. "It is the only way to survive." "That sounds lonely," Junho observed. Solara turned to face him, and her skin flickered with colors of sadness and uncertainty. "It is the life I have now," she said. "I am a traitor to my people, a woman without a home or a future. What else can I do?" Junho took a deep breath and made a decision that had been forming in his heart for days. "You could take me with you," he said. Solara stared at him with shock. "What?" "I came to this moon to hide from my grief, to escape the pain of losing Minji," Junho explained. "But hiding is not the same as healing. I have spent 2 years running from life, and all it brought me was loneliness and despair." He took her hands in her warm blue skin pressing against his own. "Then you crashed into my world, literally, and you reminded me what it feels like to care about someone again," he continued. I do not want to go back to being alone. I want to face the unknown with you, whatever that means. You would leave everything behind, Solara asked. Your home, your species, your entire life. My home is wherever I choose to make it, Junho replied. My species will survive without one engineer, and my life has been empty for too long. He reached up and touched the ring on his finger, the symbol of his love for Minji that he had worn every day since her death. Slowly, gently, he removed the ring and held it in his palm. I will never forget her, he said softly. She was my first love, my partner, my best friend. But I think she would want me to live again, to find happiness instead of drowning in sorrow. He placed the ring in a small box on the shelf beside the observation window. Goodbye, Minji, he whispered. Thank you for loving me. I hope I made you proud. Solara watched this moment with tears flowing freely down her cheeks. Her skin glowed with brilliant gold light, and she did not try to stop it. Junho, she breathed his name like a prayer. Come with me, he said. Oh, let me come with you. Either way, let us face the galaxy together. Solara laughed through her tears and threw her arms around him. You impossible, wonderful human, she said. Yes, I will go anywhere with you. They spent the next week repairing Solara's crashed ship using parts from the outpost. Junho worked tirelessly despite his healing injuries, and Solara marveled at his determination. When the ship was finally ready, they stood together at the airlock and looked back at the small station that had brought them together. No regrets, Solara asked. None, Junho answered. Only hope. They boarded the ship and prepared for launch. As they rose from the surface of the barren moon, Junho looked down at the place that had been his refuge and his prison for 14 months. He felt no sadness at leaving it behind. The stars stretched before them, endless and mysterious, full of dangers and wonders they had yet to discover. Solara took his hand and squeezed it gently. Where should we go? She asked. Junho smiled at her, at this beautiful alien woman who had crashed into his life and reminded him how to feel again. Anywhere, he said. Everywhere. The galaxy is vast, and we have all the time in the universe. The ship accelerated into the darkness, carrying two souls from different worlds who had found something precious in each other. They did not know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in years, both of them were looking forward to finding out. The galaxy would never understand how a lonely human and a hunted Volanti warrior fell in love. But then again, the galaxy had always underestimated what humans were capable of. And that was perhaps humanity's greatest strength of all.